please. Can I ask deputies please to adhere to the time limits provided? Deputy Martin, the floor is yours.
Minister, it is now nearly 2 years since Minister Simon Harris promised to introduce and establish a compassionate access scheme for the medicinal use of cannabis in certain circumstances and for patients with specific conditions, namely drug-resistant epilepsy, spasticity in MS patients, and nausea and sickness for patients with cancer who are being treated with chemotherapy. However, it has been very, very slow in progressing the establishment of this particular scheme, and little progress has been seen. It's close to 2 years since the original promise was made. We're all aware that there are many families out there now under great stress and strain. I'm meeting them on a regular basis because of the absence of such a scheme. We know the story, the very brave story of Vera Toomey, who had to spend 3 months in Holland under the supervision with her daughter Eva of a paediatrician with an interest in neurology, so as to validate, if you like, the utilisation of CBD THC for Eva. And Eva is doing well, and her quality of life has improved. But there are many other families under stress and strain. There are now 12 patients in Ireland who receive CBD THC via an import licence arrangement. That involves families of patients with cancer or other very difficult conditions having to travel to Holland mainly, to the Transvaal pharmacy there, to secure the medicine. And you may recall, Minister, and a lot of us in the House were involved, the access programme was designed as an alternative to the legislation that was put through the House by Deputy Kenny at the time. Many of us felt that may not be a realistic or pragmatic approach. The Medicinal Cannabis Access Scheme was about introducing a scheme that would give access. It was recommended by the HPRA expert group and would allow monitoring of the utilisation of it and also refinement around dosage and so on. But I would now put it to you, Minister, that the absence of a compassionate access scheme represents the absence of compassion itself for the many families and patients who are looking for the legal use. Unfortunately, many are out there accessing this illegally, and that has its own dangers and concerns. Now, I got a letter yesterday from the Minister for Health. It's a bit disingenuous towards the end in suggesting that it has no control over commercial operators and so on like that, and instances of difficulties in terms of sourcing the medicinal cannabis. It's that the Department of Health has no control in relation to business decisions taken by commercial product manufacturers. There's no powers to compel companies. No one ever said it had. But what is required here is proactivity and intensive engagement with companies. Now, I'm aware that there actually has been engagement, although the correspondence would suggest that there has been, and that it is within the capacity of a company to supply medicinal cannabis in the first quarter of 2019 if a push can be made and intense engagement between HPRA and the department and the companies concerned could develop. Because it's long past time now. It simply is not sustainable that people access this through importation licences. Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Martin, for raising this issue, and I do appreciate the cross-party interest that is in this issue, and you made reference to the Vera Toomey and her daughter Eva. I'm very familiar with, and I've attended meetings with the Minister for Health along with colleagues of yours and Deputy Kinney on this issue. I think there are two distinct issues, as you allude to. There is the issue of medical cannabis, which has the component THC, and that's under the ministerial licence system, and I think up to 12 families have been approved for that, is my understanding to date. There is then the parallel issue of access to medical cannabis access programme, and that is a process that is underway actively by the department. I understand, I believe there was in fact recently a visit to Denmark by department officials to see how the process there has developed. We're looking at what is best international practice to make sure that all of those families out there who have an interest in this, in terms of any actions that we may take, are appropriate and consistent and medically informed. I do appreciate for us in this country, we are in many respects breaking new ground. The limited number of families that have access to it under licence, the product with THC, I don't believe there has been, subject to correction, but I don't believe there has been any application there which is consultant-led that has been refused. But I appreciate there is a second part to this which the Department is currently considering how best to progress, and that involves looking at other international best practice. And as I said, there has been engagement with other jurisdictions on this matter.
Deputy Martin, you have a minute.
The reply says from Minister Harris, until suitable cannabis products are made available in Ireland, it will be a matter for the prescriber and their patients to source the prescribed product. We know that. But then he says, we are aware that a Canadian company is in discussions with an Irish-based distributor to supply their products to the Irish market. However, no further details are available on the date of availability of these cannabis products, and no import licence application has yet been sought by the Irish distributor to bring these products into the country. Now, the person who wrote this knows full well, the Minister signs it, but he knows full well why the import licence application hasn't been made. This company supplies all of Europe. The bottom line here is someone needs to get moving on it. And going to Denmark and elsewhere now is just going around new directions. This is 2 years on. Remember, we cooperated constructively with the Minister for Health on this, in this House. Many of us did. And the answer and the approach was, let's do the medicinal access scheme. It's too slow. This can be resolved. I know it can be resolved. I know this product could be in Ireland in the beginning of next year. If there's a push, there has been an institutional resistance to this in certain areas. We know that. You know that. There's been a cultural issue among some of the medics. I understand clinical evidence-based approach. I get that, clinical trials.
Well, Deputy, the time
I know all of that.
please.
But the bottom line here is we committed to this. The Minister committed to this 2 years ago. It's time now to get this sorted on a compassionate basis for many, many families and patients out there who need it. And we shouldn't be forcing families to have to go to Holland and elsewhere to get access to this. Every 3 months they have to go to get access to this, and all of that entails.
Minister.
The points that you make, I don't believe there is any foot dragging in the department, as you seem to allege. The department did establish an expert group to assist it in respect of this issue. That is comprised of all of the appropriate expertise, that would be required to make an informed decision in this area. I think collectively there is a willingness to move, but we need to make sure that in so doing we are not taking any undue risks in respect of access to the product. And I know that the Minister for Health has engaged with many people, including individual families that have an interest in this area in terms of accessing these products. And I am certain that there is no resistance politically. I'm not aware of any resistance medically, but we have to make sure that in terms of the steps we take, that they are in the best long-term interests of patients.